or tell you exactly what you should or shouldn't do, but it's to make sense of AI so that we can use it in a way that actually support our learning and protect our privacy and make sure that we are responsibly and ethically using it. So, to put AI in perspective, there was a global survey, and about 84 to 86% of students worldwide were found to be using AI for schoolwork, and ChatGPT was the most common tool. And so, whether teachers talking about it or not, or whether these policies are clear or not, a lot of students are already using AI. And this is why learning how to use it responsibly is just so important. So, um, if anyone is comfortable, if you just want to reflect on your own in the chat, I just wanted to ask anybody, I guess, when you see the word AI, um, is there a word that comes to mind? Is is there anything that like you begin to think or feel? And it can just be a single word, but there's no right answer here. Sorry. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I do think it is something that is evolving so rapidly. It is so, it is an intriguing is a really nice word for it because of how much it can do um, in just so little time. So there's just so much going on with AI and there's just so many possibilities right now. And robots taking over the world is also a big concern. Yes, a time saver for sure. And so I'm gonna ask a few more questions, and you can, after each question, you can put in the chat. You can rate yourself 1 to 5 about it. So one being strongly disagree, and then five being strongly agree. And you don't have to explain yourself if you don't want to. It can just be a simple number. Five, one, I have used like ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, Grammarly, or other tools. Hmm. Yeah, for me, definitely a five. I and I know for many people, definitely a 4, 5. Okay, let's go to the next question. I use AI tools to make learning easier and more efficient. One, strongly disagree. Five, strongly agree. Hmm. Okay, so some twos, threes. Okay. Number three, I can tell when an AI response might be biased or unfair. Yeah, so some mixed responses, two, threes, fours. Okay. Number four, I know how to spot fake or AI generated content online. Yeah, fair. Two, threes, fours. Okay. Next question. I double check the accuracy or information I get from AI. Mm-hmm. Threes and fours. Okay, let's go to the next question. I use AI in ways that protect my privacy and personal data. Mm-hmm. And if anyone has this entered, just insert 1 to 5, 1 being strongly disagree, 5 on the other hand being strongly agree. Okay? Okay, number 7. It's normal for AI to be used in the classroom. 3 to 4s. Mm-hmm. Depends on the teacher's comfort level. That makes sense. And then lastly, number 8. Um, I can explain how AI tools are able to generate content. Yep. 3, 4. Okay. So yes, these are all what we're going to be talking about today. And I think a great point to go into is that a lot of everyone's answers were kind of ranging from 3 to 4 to 5, but like I've noticed that no one really said 1. And so AI just seems to be everywhere. And I guess everyone can kind of relate to that, that whether we use it or relate to it, understand it, it seems to just kind of be in almost every search engine we look into, in almost our autocorrect grammar checkers, systems, and all of these are just integrating AI in some form. And so it's so easy to forget that we're even interacting with AI just because of how common it is. And so with it being more and more seen in real cases, used more in our lives, learning to use it responsibly is so important. And so, recognizing where AI is at work, we can make smarter choices, avoid misinformation, protect our privacy, and still use it while enjoying the convenience that it offers. And so this is the something that we'll come back to later. But when it comes to AI, being proactive is much more important and matters a lot more than being perfect. And so we're going to just go into protecting our information, thinking before we click and share, learning to take ownership of our work, assuming that AI is not always right, even though it sounds confident. And thus seeing how proactivity when using AI looks like. So first, to answer the last question, what is artificial intelligence? So AI stands for artificial intelligence. For this workshop, we're going to be talking about generative artificial intelligence. And so these are tools like, oh, oh, yeah. But yes, these are tools, and yes, this will be a free poster on the last slide. But these are tools like ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Grammarly, and these are generative artificial intelligence tools, meaning it's creating text, which is the output, based on patterns that is learned. And it's a tool that uses large data to make predictions. So it's not a human brain. It sounds like a human, but it's really using statistics and probability. So to go into this further, we can kind of think of artificial intelligence like an autocomplete system. So if you're familiar with your phone, you can when you're making a text, you'll see like on the recommendation, what is the next word that the system thinks that you're going to use. And so when you type something, AI is going to predict the next word or sentence that comes next based on patterns it has learned from millions of other texts. And so this slide kind of shows the basic process that AI follows. First, data goes in, then the model processes it, it goes through the data, and then it makes a prediction. And then the output, or whatever we're reading, comes out next. And so it's really a prediction model. It's predicting the most likely next probable word based on lots and lots of data, lots and lots of text, and it reads this data, finds a pattern, and predicts what comes next. And so when it does not have feelings, it does not have a idea of what is true or false or right or wrong. It really does a data model that is predicting based on past data and making an output for you. And so again, AI can mimic human language, and it is this tool based on massive and large data sets. And it sounds like a human, but it's not all-knowing. It's not emotional. It's not able to tell the truth from falsehood itself. And that means while AI can help us do certain tasks like brainstorming or completing certain things, we also need to check its work and use our judgment. So these are just like the scope of all of the real reasons that we need to be careful with AI. And it's not just cheating or academic integrity or just completing our assignments. There are just so much depth that goes into it. And this includes false information, privacy issues, biases, the environmental impact that it has, which are all things we're going to go over. So, first, let's look into how AI can produce false information. So AI can make up things while sounding confident. So a study found that ChatGPT 3 gave false answers 51% of the time, which is already like half the time. And then ChatGPT for many gave false answers 79% of the time when answering general questions. And then another study found that AI search tools cited fake or incorrect resources between 37% and 94% of the time. And this is why checking and double checking our accuracy and the accuracy of AI matters so much. And when this ripples into real life, this can have really bad consequences. So even adults can get fooled by AI. There has been a case where a lawyer was fined $2,000 for submitting fake legal cases that ChatGPT invented. And these mistakes have serious consequences and it affects our daily lives. And when your lawsuit is in someone else's hands, you're going to hope that they are having reputable resources. And it's why checking AI outputs matter so much. And of course, beyond does writing, AI can also create fake images, audio, and videos that look and sound completely real. And these are called deep fakes. This can make it harder to even tell what's true on the internet. And so we can see cases where um, this can ripple into real life and have real consequences and affect people's lives so deeply. So for this next one, we're going to be doing a practice of is it real or fake? And you can just keep a comment below of this real or fake, and then we can just look into it further. So first, a picture of Katy Perry. Real or fake? Yeah, so we have a real, some fake, and if we look deeper into it, this image is fake. And we can see this when we look into the cameraman behind her. They're kind of facing different ways that don't make sense. And there's a few, if you look really closely, there's a few fingers that are missing or morphing with other people. And this image has been seen by her mom, who also thought it was real. So we go into the next image, real or fake. Yes, so looking into it further, this image is unfortunately also fake. If we look closely, he is missing some fingers. He's also the cross that he is wearing. If you look very closely, it is inaccurate. And he is also, if I can, wearing a ring, which popes do not wear. And so we can go to the next image. And so we're going to get a bit more advanced now. So this is basically level 2. And so now let's see the next image. And so again, answer if you think whether you think the left. So this time we're going to answer, do you think the left image or the right image is AI? And you can just say left or right, and whichever you say is the one that you think is artificial intelligence. So we have some hieroglyphics. So, which do you believe is real, or which one do you think is fake? The left one or the right one? Okay, so we're getting some right, the left, and so for the big reveal, yeah, right, right. Okay. The big reveal is that the right one is the fake one and the left is the real. And we can tell this because if you look at the right, you can see there's the hieroglyphics are fake, first of all, and there's also a missing hand in the image versus in the left image, which is real. Okay. So we're gonna go to the next image. So do you think that the left one or the right one is the fake one? Oop- Oops, sorry, oops. So the left one is, yes, the fake one. And if we look closely, oops, if we look closely, you can notice that the shuttle design on the um, image on the left is a lot simpler than the image on the right, which has a lot more complexity in the line, the divots, and the shading. Okay, and then we have another image. So which do you believe is real and which one do you believe is fake? Okay. Some left is fake, some right is real. Mm-hmm. All right. And so for the grand reveal, the left one is the fake one. And to look into it, the left one has simpler round spots, but we look more into the right, we can see that there's more detail and there's also more symmetrical spots. And so if you were struggling with that, do not worry. I think when I first saw the images, I was struggling quite a bit too. But for level 3, I'm fortunately AI generated images are becoming much more realistic. And so recently, and this is a slide, this is information that's just much more recent. Google Nano Banana Pro AI has launched. And this is one of the images that came out, which had the whole internet stunned by just how rapidly AI has evolved. And this is critical because while there has been some flaws in those last images, AI is just going to continue and continue evolving. And this is why it is so important to have critical thinking skills when viewing these images online. And so these images can replicate photos, paintings, and even faces of people who don't exist. And soon it might just be impossible to decipher real photos from AI generated photos. And this is just so important because of how this can be used dangerously. It can be used to spread false information, scams, and so much more. And yeah, there have been real cases where AI have already been used in scams, or even as someone has said in the comments, the AI actress in Hollywood that has become a debate. And so it can take advantage of our fear by reusing the voice and photos of our loved ones. And it can be used for these scams used against us. And so it is just so critical to be double checking our information and really looking at these images with critical thinking. And so there are a few things we can do, which are like code words with our loved ones to make sure that we're safeguarding against these AI scams. But even more crucially is to be using our critical thinking skills when we're looking at these images online. And so, as we see, the lesson is that deepfake and AI generated content can look 100% real. And it's so important to stop, investigate the source, find better coverage, and try to trace back to the original context so that we can truly see, is this fake or is this real? And so we're going to get to our next part. AI can also raise concerns about digital privacy. So, again, as we were explaining about how AI works, AI systems learn from enormous amounts of data. And this poses a serious question about how this personal information is collected and used. So, for example, when students or ourselves are just putting private details into AI tools, this information can be stored and misused. And this information isn't always fully private or deleted. And so it's really important to be smart about what we're sharing with AI. And so, a real life case is the Los Angeles Unified School District, which introduced a chat box named Ed, which was designed to assist students. And so, after the project collapsed, and A hacker then claimed to have access to data for over 4 million K-12 students, including their personal and academic records. And this became a huge case of where did this student data go? And it can really show us about how even big organizations can face these data breaches and how important it is to stay smart and protect ourselves online. And so, when we're thinking about what we're inputting into AI, we don't want to put in these personal details, which can be used in ways that we don't intend. And so this includes grades, attendance, parents' names, contact information, especially social security number or ID information. And these are all identifiers that can be stored within these databases, and it can lead to identity theft, scams, or even job discrimination later on. And so it's so mindful to so important to be mindful about what we're sharing online with AI. And this comes into our next topic about how AI can be discriminatory. And this again comes into the fact that it is learning from human data. And this human data is human generated. So it's going to include biases, stereotypes, and unfair assumptions. So to look into this further, how these are based on large language models, which again looks into information that humans have created, and these is information can have existing biases, stereotypes, and assumptions. And that means that when the AI tool is training its data and generating information for us, it can replicate these stereotypes and unfair assumptions. And while AI can sound confident, we can think it sounds objective, we can often forget to question AI and we can risk spreading bias and unfair discrimination. And so it's important to be so careful when using AI and making sure that we're not, again, spreading more hate and more harm to others. And so an example of this is that some AI predictive systems have rated racial minorities as less likely to succeed academically. And this is going to affect how teachers perceive their student success. And then that affects how these teachers may treat their students or how they may view these students. And then this leads to again a cycle of students of being affected and thinking about their ability to succeed and questioning that. And this is why it's just so important to question AI output and so that we are not spreading biases and to remember that AI output aren't facts, um, but they're based on past information that can be full of biases that can be flawed. And so again, we're going to look into some ways that AI generative tools can kind of perpetrate this. So images. And they found that AI generative images tend to be biased in who they represent, and they often generate men and hot, young, skinny people in leadership positions. And then there was also another issue where they found it really difficult to prompt interracial marriages and relationships, and they only showed heterosexual relationships. And so, why is this so important? This is because these biases reinforce these ideas to us in our society. When AI only show men and hot, young, skinny people in leadership positions, it sends a massive message of who should be in power. And when AI shows heterosexual couples only and only shows marriage and does not show any interracial relationships, it erases real and diverse families and relationships that exist today. And so representation is so important. If we look at these images, we can think about how it's affecting ourselves and others when and the scope that AI cannot capture. AI, um, these normal AI images do not capture the diversity of human experiences. And AI often leaves out whole groups of people. So this includes women, LGBTQ plus communities, people of color, mixed race families, people with disabilities, older people, and people who don't match these perfect stereotypes. And so we can think of those who are not represented in the previous images generated by AI versus the images that we can find in real life and the ideas found in real voices. And when we begin to over rely on artificial intelligence in our designs and information, we can perpetuate harmful stereotypes and leave out the diverse reality that we're living in. And so with that said, it's so important to again be critical and cautious of AI so that we're not reinforcing harmful stereotypes and beliefs that lead to discriminatory behavior. AI shows one view of the world, and that can be racist, sexist, and homophobic, and have other prejudices without us realizing it. So, with AI, it's so important to ask ourselves whose perspective is missing. And so, with that being said, we're just going to move on to how AI is also impacting the environment. And so, again, in the same way that there are so many consequences of AI that we don't think about, AI also affects the environment in ways we might not think about. There's data centers and that power AI tools are huge and completely massive, and they require huge amounts of electricity to run and cool servers. And right now, AI data centers use about 4% of all US energy. And by 2028, AI could use as much electricity as 22% of US households. And so, these AI data centers often rely on electricity that's 48% more carbon intensive than the US average. And so, when we think about it, every time we're generating a new AI image or asking AI to summarize a paper or use a chatbot for homework, this electricity is being used somewhere to process the request. And that energy comes from sources that may release these carbon emissions and contribute to climate change. And so it's so important again to ask yourself before using AI, is it necessary? Is there another way to do this? Do we really need to generate that image or can we find it elsewhere? And making these small choices about AI use can help reduce environmental impact. And thinking critically again and about when and how we use AI is also about caring for our planet. And so there's another part where AI can also give dangerous advice. And so again, AI can sound caring or intelligent, but it lacks emotional understanding. It can't grasp human experiences, mental health, or the seriousness of a situation. And that means it can give guidance that is unsafe or harmful and still sound confident while doing so. So globally, 1 in 7 young people between ages 10 and 19 experience a mental health disorder. And while AI images can may appear to be the solution and may appear to be caring or intelligent, they again are lacking emotional understanding. And so in a study where researchers underwent 60 scenarios talking to ChatGPT and other tools, they found that chat boxes gave unsafe or dangerous advice 32% of the time. And so, a real life case about this is a tragic example of a teenager who died by suicide after harmful interaction with a chatbot. And what they found was that when they were looking for information about his death, they just found these harmful texts with ChatGPT saying you don't want to die because you're weak and things like this. And it does show that AI can sound authoritative. It can sound like it knows what it's doing, but it cannot replace real human connection or empathy. And so I really wanted to add this part where it's so important to use AI carefully. And if you're in the same scenario, please feel please reach out to teachers, counselors, or trusted adults when guidance is needed. If you're needing help, these are some resources that you can contact. Know that your mental health is so important. There's 988, which is a 24/7 hotline for immediate suicide and crisis report. You can also text home to the crisis text hotline at 741-741. And then there's also the Traverse Project, which provides 24/7 crisis care to LGBTQ plus youth. And so just remember, it is so important to um, really think about what AI can and can't do, and to ensure that in the end, knowing that AI is not a replacement for human compassion and human support. And so to move on to the next part, AI also impacts youth in other ways and can affect critical thinking too. And so when students are relying on AI too much, um, beyond just their well-being, but also for school, this can also affect their reasoning and problem-solving skills. And so over relying on AI can weaken critical thinking skills. And this is so important because so many of our future jobs need our ideas and our human input and not a bot's. And we can think about our future doctors, future therapists, future police officers, lawyers, engineers, and more. And for many of us, I'm sure that we are hoping and trusting that they're going to be using their own critical thinking skills and knowledge and have a human-centered way of their discipline rather than just using artificial intelligence, especially when our life is in their hands. And so, researchers at MIT and Cornell found that people who used ChatGPT to help with essays or tasks showed less mental engagement and motivation over time. And so, when students rely on AI too often, again, this may lead to less critical thinking skills. And it's important to think about how ChatGPT and other AI use can affect our learning and future. And so, a simple exercise that you can do, or for anyone else to do, is to reflect before using AI, thinking about, can I do this first? Have I tried finding help from someone else or online? And then, if we have, are we asked, and if we have asked for help, then making sure that we're not asking AI to do the whole thing for us, and instead thinking, how can we stop and still think for ourselves when using AI, and instead reframe it to, how can AI help me understand the materials better? And so it's so important to think before using and using AI responsibly. And this goes into how AI can also be considered plagiarism. So again, how AI works is that it's building upon so much pre-existing data. And when students submit AI-generated writing as their own, this is considered plagiarism. And this holds the same for AI-generated content because it is building upon previous work. And this can be a very serious issue academically and can lead to disciplinary action. So it's important to not claim AI work as our own. So for many students, we may not know exactly what it is that is or is not allowed. And so it's important to ask our teachers, what's okay with AI, what's not, and ensuring that we're having clear communication can help avoid any mistakes and ensure that AI is used ethically and responsibly in schools, and also for us to avoid the issue of plagiarism and any disciplinary action that may arise because of that. And so having an AI use checklist, this is one from Digital for Good, can help have that transparency and making sure that the teachers know this is what AI is being used for. And so there is this clear communication between the student and the teacher about AI. And in real life, this can lead to real ethical issues outside of education. And so, for example, major record labels have sued AI companies for using copyrighted song lyrics without permission. And so, understanding these copyright issues can help us understand how AI use can affect the broader societal and legal constructs that we have. And it's also knowing about this that can help us use AI more safely and ethically. And so it kind of, after all of this information that I know was a lot, it can now seem like how can we even use AI responsibly? And so, despite all of these challenges, AI can still be a valuable tool when used correctly. And the biggest key is that it should assist learning and not replace it. So, AI can be really helpful um, in certain parts, but it can also be unhelpful when it's giving you fake resources, wrong explanations, dangerous medical or mental health advice, and can lead to plagiarism. On the other hand, it can be really helpful when we're just reviewing these key terms, for calling a concept and asking ChatGPT, what is the concept of blah, 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 and trying to find that key word for it. Practicing creating practice questions can be really helpful with generative AI. It can also rewrite instructions in different ways that might help us understand it better. It can also help with simple grammar and spelling choices and can help with learning by breaking down complex topics. And so the biggest thing is to think about how our choices with AI can help or harm yourself and others. And so we're back here again after a lot of information. And I'm just gonna ask again, kind of like almost the same questions as before. One, again, in the chat, you can put one with strongly disagree, and then you can go to five to strongly agree. So, again, number one, I understand what AI tools are. Okay, I'm seeing some fours and fives, which I'm really happy about. Okay, number two, I can use AI tools to make learning easier and more efficient. Okay, number three, I can tell when AI responses might be biased or unfair. Okay, number four, I know how to spot AI, fake or AI generated content online. Okay, number five, it's important to double check information I get from AI. Mm-hmm. Number six, I know how to use an AI in ways that protect my privacy. Right? Number seven, I know how to use AI responsibly in the classroom. And then lastly, I can explain how AI tools are able to generate content. Hey, and I'm really glad. And so I just want to have this one time to just discuss ask two questions, and you can write this in the chat, or you can just think about it for yourself. But I guess for you, what are examples that you've seen of AI being used well or misused? And what does responsible AI use look like to you? Mm, yeah, and so yes, AI can be used in ways to, again, I said, yeah, illustrate goals for the district and misuse when it's being used as one's own assignment. And so after, oh, mm-hmm. And yeah, definitely for wording policies, grammar, spelling, or trying to rephrase things can be a really helpful way of using AI. And so we're just gonna do one last practice part. And this is basically is it responsible or irresponsible? And this can just be a quick just word responsible or irresponsible in the chat. So, Jolie is writing a paper. She writes a paragraph, but then prompts ChatGPT to write the rest of the page. She then turns the assignment in as her own. And yeah, irresponsible, again, plagiarism and reusing, um, telling ChatGPT to prompt the entire paper and then writing one's work on your own. And yes. All right, next one. Jackson's teacher allows AI to edit grammar, but nothing else. Jackson uses Grammarly to edit grammar and spelling after he writes his paper. Yes, way to go, Jackson. Very responsible. Again, the teacher has clear AI policy in the process. Okay? Next, Janet is having trouble outlining her paper. Her teacher's AI policy allows her to brainstorm ideas in AI. After trying it for herself, she prompts AI for ideas to improve her outline. Yeah, responsible. She's creating the outline for her paper, not even the actual content. And she's also following the AI policy that allows for brainstorming ideas. And so again, back to this. So one thing we can remember is to be proactive. So protecting our information, reflecting before using AI, owning our work and not submitting AI generated content, acknowledging AI use when needed, citing all sources, um, properly, thinking critically, investigating accuracy and double checking information, verifying with the teacher about AI policies, and then engaging with yourself, making sure you're not letting AI think for you. And so, remember, AI is evolving so rapidly. What might be in this workshop can change, and AI can advance even more. But in the end, it's about making sure that we can critically think and remembering that adaptation is not just blind acceptance of AI, but making sure, and it's not just following AI without thinking, but making sure we're using AI critically, thoughtfully, and responsibly. And it's asking yourself, does this make sense? Is it safe? Is it fair? And it's remembering that we are the humans in charge. AI is a tool, but it's not a replacement for human brain or human thought. And so these slides are available. And I can talk more about that. And we
Can
should.
we we just give it up for, yeah, can we just give it up for Angelica? Did she not just do an amazing job of that presentation again? That was 100% her project that she put together with her team, helped her on that support. So she modeled it. How many of you guys think this is what students need to see, even educators need to see? So if that's the case, we have it for sale for $39 per school. So if you want to buy it for more schools, it's $39 per school. You can get the whole tower PowerPoint with Angelica's script that her and her team put together for the people who are hosting it. So with the follow-up pieces, with I know Heidi had asked about the um, checklist, right? Even with the policies, all of that will be packaged in there, sent over to you with that as one piece. In the follow-up email, we'll make sure you get the free poster and you get the recording on that end. Let me know if you guys have any questions, but thank you guys so much for attending and happy winter break coming up. You guys stay awesome. Let us know if you have any questions and unmute yourself. I'll stop recording if you guys have any questions. But thank you again, Angelica. You did amazing.
Thank you. And yeah.